Hello, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, yet again, we are sitting down and talking about books. That's just what I've been most passionate about talking about lately. I absolutely love it. I still love working out. I still love talking about, mental health and doing vlogs and all that stuff. But right now I'm just on a booktube kick and I want to be a part of the booktube community. I want to expand my horizons on books that I read and books that I'm sharing with you guys. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about books that I currently own that I'm the most excited to read, as well as books that I do not own that I'm excited to pick up and eventually read. So that is the premise to today's video. I really hope you guys have been enjoying all of my booktube content. If you do, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe down below. And without further ado, let's just dive right in. I'm very purposeful with my layout today. Got lots of plants and some books in the background. It's looking cute. I also made myself a lovely iced coffee. So to make things easier for myself, I'm going to talk about the books that I currently own first that I am most excited to get to. I am currently reading a self-help / business book about basically just how to achieve more, stress less, and feel fulfilled, and it's called Working Hard, Hardly Working by Grace Beverly. If you do not know who Grace is, she used to be a Gymshark athlete. She is now a 24-year-old entrepreneur who is killing the game. She has a sustainable company, a podcast. I'm pretty sure she went to Oxford University, and she's just been like really well known. She's from England and she's been on like Forbes 30 under 30, all of that stuff, and she's just like super successful, and she kind of gives all of her tips and tricks in this book. She also really highlights the importance of working hard for what you want, but also not being a part of like hustle culture and really hardly work as well, which is why it's called Working Hard, Hardly Working. It's important to have that balance, and I'm like halfway through right now and I'm really enjoying it. So if you are interested in starting your own career or just kind of don't know where to turn and how to kind of make the most of your life when it comes to your career and your mental health, I would highly recommend picking up this book. There are really nice figures in here, super easy to understand, and overall I just think it's cool that someone my age wrote this book, and it just gives me hope that one day I could probably be just as successful. Not probably, I could be just as successful. So definitely go pick this up if you are interested and you are in need for some passion-driven, business-like advice. Sort of sticking to that self-help sort of realm, I have wanted to read this book for so long. It is called Group: How One Therapist and a Circle of Strangers Saved My Life by Christy Tate. And I have wanted to read this book for so long, ever since my friend Shelby picked it up, and I was kind of like on the fence when she picked it up. I'm picking it up and I never did, but then I found it and I bought it like months later. So this book is, essentially what it is on the title. Christy basically goes to group therapy and meets a bunch of strangers who essentially save her life, and I'm just really excited to learn more about what goes on in this book, because it's not entirely clear even in the synopsis, but it is on Reese's book club, which is a good sign. And the back does say that Christy is a guarded, overachieving young lawyer who is convinced that she is defective, incapable of real human connection. Then she meets the unorthodox therapist who utters 9 words that will change everything. You don't need a cure, you need a witness. So I think it's just going to basically be a bunch of people going to therapy together and honestly just like venting to people that you aren't close with, who can give you an unbiased opinion of what's going on in your brain, in your life. Is really helpful. So maybe this will trigger me into possibly going to therapy myself. I don't know. I am just so excited to read this because it's been on my TBR forever. The next 3 books that I have in person are more like thriller, mystery books, because we all know that is where I originated and that is what I love to death, no pun intended. I'm so excited for this first one. I picked it up maybe a week ago, and it is The Minders by John Mars. If you don't know, he read my absolute favorite book, The One. It is by far like a 5 out of 5 star for me, my favorite book, and I'm not gonna lie, I have high expectations for this book because it's really good. So basically it says, in the 21st century, information is king, but computers can be hacked and files can be broken into. So a unique government initiative has been born. 5 ordinary people have been selected to become minders. Transformed by a revolutionary medical procedure, they are the latest weapon in thwarting cyber terrorism. The country's most classified information has been taken offline and turned into genetic code implanted inside their heads. Together, the 5 know every secret, the truth behind every government lie, conspiracy theory, and cover-up. In return, they're given the chance to leave their problems behind in a blank slate to start their lives anew. But not everyone should be trusted, especially when they each have secrets of their own they'll do anything to protect. I just thought it was a really, really interesting Big Brother type of read, and I am obsessed with John Marr's way of writing. I am hoping that it lives up to the expectation, but this is his newest book and I just really needed to pick it up. I'm so excited to read it. It's definitely more of like a psychological suspense novel as opposed to like a thriller mystery, but nonetheless I think it's going to be really kind of eerie and creepy, and just thinking about how government runs now, I'm skeptical, but I'm excited. This book is one that I actually got for Christmas from my mom that I still haven't read, and it's been like 7 months, so I am very excited to eventually pick it up, and that is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. I'm also really excited to read her new one, For Your Own Good, but this is one that I, first of all, love the cover. I think it's super cute. I've seen it also in like a white, and both of them are the exact same but really, really cool. I am just so excited. I've heard nothing but good things about this book, and it's basically about a couple who murdered together. I've always wanted to read a book like that. Typically it's like one of the people kills their spouse, or one of them is a murderer and the other one doesn't know, but I've never read anything where both kill together. So it says, our love story is simple. I met a gorgeous woman, we fell in love, we had kids, we moved to the suburbs. We told each other our biggest dreams and our darkest secrets.
And then we got bored.
We look like a normal couple, we are your neighbors, the parents of your kid's friend, the acquaintances you keep meaning to get dinner with. We all have our secrets to keeping a marriage alive. Ours just happens to be getting away with murder. So that's all it tells you on the back. There's really not much else, and I've just heard that the plot is really freaking good. So I'm excited to eventually pick this up and read it. I'll probably end up reading it around Halloween. And the last book that I have in person is one that I've already talked about like 3 or 4 times on my channel, and that is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I am so excited. The only book other than this that he has written is The Silent Patient, which has been all over Book Talk, all over Instagram, everything, and that was his debut freaking book, and it was amazing. It was another one of my 5 out of 5s this year. If you don't follow my Bookstagram, you really should, because I definitely do a lot of good, in my opinion, reviews over there, as well as sort of like cute little reels showing you guys what books I like, what books I'm reading, all that stuff. But The Maidens it takes place on a university campus, which to me is just super creepy because I recently graduated a couple years ago, and I can only imagine how creepy it would be having like some type of murder mystery on campus. Basically, there is a Greek professor named Edward, and Mariana, a therapist on campus, really believes that he's a murderer, and she's trying to find proof throughout this entire book, but then she gets really fixated on this like group called the Maidens, and it's because one of her friends, Zoe, actually disappears and then gets murdered, and I think it's pretty much just like a crime thriller mystery book that goes through the motions of figuring out if Edward actually did it or not. It says, Mariana, who was once herself a student at the university, quickly suspects that behind the idyllic beauty and beneath the ancient traditions lies something sinister, and she becomes convinced that, despite his alibi, Edward is guilty of the murder. But why would the professor target one of his students? And why does he keep returning to the rites of Persephone, the maiden, and her journey to the underworld? When another body is found, Mariana's obsession with proving Edward's guilt spirals out of control, threatening to destroy her credibility as well as her closest relationships. But Mariana is determined to stop this killer, even if it costs her everything, including her own life. So I think it's definitely going to follow Mariana, the therapist, more than Edward, but I think it's super interesting that she's like fixated on figuring it out and realizing who actually did these murders, and I'm really excited to see what ends up happening. So The Maidens, very exciting. Also, it's just like a super gorgeous cover in my opinion. Now, moving on to books that I do not own but I want to buy soon. I do have my phone on me because I'm gonna kind of read a little bit about what they are. We will start this off with the one more thriller books that were kind of like synced up and seamless in this video, and that is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. So I've heard so many good things about this book. I've also heard that it's insanely creepy, and I've read a lot of thrillers, but there weren't very many that actually scared me to my core, and I honestly and truly believe that this one's gonna do that. This one here, it says, 20 years ago, Claire Scott's eldest sister, Julia, went missing. No one knew where she went, no note, no body. It was a mystery that was never solved, and it tore her family apart. Now another girl has disappeared with chilling echoes of the past, and it seems that she might not be the only one. Claire is convinced Julia's disappearance is linked, but when she begins to learn the truth about her sister, she is confronted with a shocking discovery, and nothing will ever be the same. It's definitely going to be like family related. Maybe that's why it hits a lot of people in the feels. I'm an only child, so like maybe it won't for me, I don't know. But regardless, I am just so excited to read this book. One of the first books I ever picked up that I ended up donating, I don't know why, was from Karen Slaughter, and so I just don't know why I did that, because I should have read it. I'm pretty sure it was like The Last Widow or something like that. But regardless, very excited to read Pretty Girls. Moving on. Let's get into a little bit of romance, because I have definitely become a fan of romance books ever since I read The Hating Game. That book changed my life, 100%. Just go check that book out. I cried at the end, and there's only ever been one other book that has made me cry. That book being The Beauty of the End. So good. I think it's by Debbie Howells. But moving on, romance. The first one being Beach Read. Are we surprised? I don't think so. I think everyone and their mother wants to read this book, so I'm just a part of that group now. I don't even think I need to read the actual synopsis because I already know so much about what happens in this book. There's this girl named January and this guy named Augustus, I believe, and they are like arch enemies from college, and they end up going to their beach houses that happen to be right next door to each other. They're there for like 3 months, and they both have writer's block, so they both read or write, not read, they both write different genres. She reads, oh my god, Emily, she writes rom-coms, romantic novels, she's a best-selling author, stuff like that, and he writes more like historical fiction, literary fiction. So basically they're both having writer's block and they hate each other, but they end up kind of going through the motions and making this deal that they're gonna write each other's books for each other, just to like see if it'll spark up something for their own genres. So she brings him to a bunch of like romantic comedy themed things to kind of get him inspired, and he brings her to interview surviving members of a like death cult. So they kind of teach each other's genres and then write them for each other, and apparently this is like a romance, but they just finished their books together. Like, I don't know what the ending's gonna be like. I've just been told and I've heard it's really freaking good, so I'm just excited to read that, and I honestly might pick it up soon. I don't really know, but Beach Read is definitely high on the list for me. Next one up for me is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. What a shock. I love Colleen. I love her writing. I love her Instagram. She's so down to earth, and yeah, her writing style is just like everything to me. It's so good, and I've been wanting to read Ugly Love for so long. So I will read the synopsis for this one. It says, when Tate Collins meets airline pilot Miles Archer, she knows it isn't love at first sight. They wouldn't even go so far as to consider themselves friends. The only thing Tate and Miles have in common is an undeniable mutual attraction. Once their desires are out in the open, they realize that they have the perfect setup. He doesn't want love, she doesn't have time for love, so that just leaves the sex. Their arrangement could be surprisingly seamless as long as Tate can stick to the only 2 rules Miles has for her. Never ask about the past, and don't expect a future. They think they can handle it, but realize almost immediately they can't handle it at all. Hearts get infiltrated, promises get broken, rules get shattered, love gets ugly. So I think that this is just going to be a really good book because it symbolizes a lot of like what the real world is like these days. I feel like a lot of people, especially like young mid-20s like myself, aren't really looking for like love and a future with someone. They really just want an arrangement where they can hook up and that's it and have a good time. So I think that's going to be really interesting, but I feel like a lot of the time someone ends up liking the other person, and it's just going to be like a real life story, in my opinion. I know it's fiction, but still, okay? It's going to be really good, especially because Colleen wrote it. So that is the next romance that I'm excited to read. And the last romance that I'm excited to read is the Kiss Quotient, because I want to read all of them. I want to read the Kiss Quotient, the Bride Test, and the Heart Principle that is coming out at the end of this month. So the Kiss Quotient is by Helen Hoang. It's her debut book, so it's her first book that she ever read. Guys, I swear I'm watching this back, and every time I say it's the first book they read, this book they read, and I mean, right? I read, I don't write. So I'm in the headspace of reading, not writing. But yeah, Helen Hoang wrote this book. And it's a heartwarming and refreshing debut novel that proves one thing: there's not enough data in the world to predict what will make your heart tick. Stella Lane thinks math is the only thing that unites the universe. She comes up with algorithms to predict customer purchases, a job that has given her more money than she knows what to do with, and way less experience in the dating department than the average 30-year-old. It doesn't help that Stella has Asperger's, and French kissing reminds her of a shark getting its teeth cleaned by pilot fish. Her conclusion: she needs a lot of practice with a professional, which is why she hires escort Michael Fan. The Vietnamese and Swedish stunner can't afford to turn down Stella's offer and agrees to help her check off all the boxes on her lesson plan, from foreplay to more than missionary position. Before long, Stella not only learns to appreciate his kisses, but to crave all of the other things he's making her feel. Soon, their no-nonsense partnership starts making a strange kind of sense, and the pattern that emerges will convince Stella that love is the best kind of logic. So I think this one's gonna be so freaking funny, and I've been told that the Kiss Quotient and the newest one that's coming out, the Heart Principle, are a little bit better than the Bride Test, but regardless, I'm gonna read all three at some point, especially this one. I just love that there's so many different layers to it. I love that she's trying to learn how to like kind of love and learn how to be sexy and stuff by hiring an escort. I just think that's so non-traditional, and it's going to be really fun. Perfect rom-com sort of plot. So that is the last romance that I'm really excited to read. And the last book that I am so excited to eventually read, especially because I recently heard someone talking about it and it just made way more sense in my mind, but that is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. And this is a fantasy book, something I would never usually gravitate to, but I just have been wanting it for so long. And it's basically about this girl named Addie Larue who lives in like the 17th century, like centuries and centuries ago. And back then she was like being forced to marry someone and she just wasn't happy, so she basically made a deal with the devil, saying that she wanted to live forever, but she worded it in a way that basically meant she was gonna live forever, but every time she leaves a room, no one's gonna remember her. And it's just like, doesn't that sound like it sucks? I've heard good and bad things because this story is pretty long. Like the amount of pages it has is really long, and a lot of people don't like that. They felt like it dragged on, but I personally, and from what I've heard from a couple other people, which is so poetic, is I want to read this book, and honestly I do want to be a little bit bored throughout it because I think it symbolizes how bored Addie Larue must have been to live forever and have no one remember you. Like, she can't get a job, she can't date someone, she can't, like, she literally can't have any relationship with someone because they're immediately gonna forget her. I know there are twists and turns in this plot, but like, I'm excited to be bored and go through the journey centuries and centuries on with Addie Larue, and I'm just really excited. And I think it's like, it's a good fantasy for me to start with because it's not that out of this world. It's definitely crazy to think about, but it's cool. So anyway, I'm really excited to read The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. I think it's going to be such a good story, and that is the last book I want to talk about in this video. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys end up picking up some of these books. Maybe I inspired you to pick one up, I don't know, but if I did, be sure to comment down below which book you're excited to read. Do not forget to subscribe if you want to see more from me. I know I've been doing a lot of booktube videos, but that's just what I genuinely enjoy, and that's what this channel is for me. It's not like a way to make money or anything like that. I just want to talk about things that make me happy, and that involves books right now. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you in my next one.